Hey interns, hopefully as of today we're feeling comfortable with what it means to be a mechanical engineer, the experts we're going to be working alongside, and last but not least, the Futuro workspace that you're going to be working in found within Amplify. If we're not feeling comfortable with those things, make sure you're reaching out to your internship coordinator. As of right now, we're going to be moving forward with 3 new things. Number 1, the general timeline of your design project. Number 2, a new tool called the Mechanical Engineering Dossier. And number 3, the constraints and the criteria of the project and the drop pods that you're going to be finishing. So to start, our timeline is broken up into 3 phases. The first phase we're going to start today. If you look at your screen, it's called the research phase. This is where you research and begin to understand the problem associated with the drop pods and how you're going to start thinking about solving those problems. The second phase is the design phase. This is the phase where you design, create, test, and analyze an actual pod design that you built. The last one is going to be the proposal phase. This is where you guys write a proposal for what design do you think is best for the pod drop and what research and testing you've done to kind of prove your point. So that is our general timeline. And as I said, we're going to start looking at the research phase today. And we're going to start by going into something called the Mechanical Engineering Dossier. This can be found on the Amplify page under day 1. If you go to the lesson brief, there's a link that says Futuro Mechanical Engineering Dossier. If you click on it, it'll take you to the same spot every single time. The dossier is nothing more than a digital folder of resources and articles for you to use to begin the actual first phase of this project. If you click on the 3 lines and 3 dots here found in the left corner, it'll show you the table of contents for the dossier. So in our dossier, we have 3 or 4 different articles and things we're going to research, some different resources, and then a glossary with all of our vocab words that we're going to be looking at. Now, let's take a look at this request for proposal. This is actually going to break down the drop pods that we're going to be creating. It's going to break down this idea of what it is. And we're going to look at the next part of our video here, which is the criteria and constraints of your actual project. This little speaker right here is something that will actually read the article to you. So as you work through the dossier, if you want to use that, you can. But by pressing play, we're going to start looking at the first part of your project.
Futura Mechanical Engineers Dossier. Chapter 1. Request for Proposals, RFP. International Disaster Aid is an organization that provides relief during natural disasters. One way it does this is by using helicopters to drop emergency supplies in areas that have been affected by natural disasters like earthquakes or floods. The emergency supplies must be packed in containers called supply pods that protect the supplies as they hit the ground. International Disaster Aid has issued a request for proposals, or RFP, for the development of supply pods to hold emergency supplies as they're delivered to people in need. Successful proposal designs will address the following 3 criteria.
Let's talk about that idea real quick. Criteria is something or a standard by which something is judged. In other words, when you guys create your design pods, we're going to be looking at 3 things. Number 1, that you minimize cargo damage. 2, maximize shell conditions, and 3, keep the cost low. You want to minimize the damage to what you put inside the pod because we want people to be able to use it. You want to maximize or keep the shell as intact as possible, as unbroken as possible, because they want to be used as shelters. And you want to keep the costs low. You want things to be very minimal in terms of cost because we don't want to spend a lot of money. So when we look at your design, we're going to be looking for those 3 things. Do you have a limited damage to the cargo? Is the shell intact? And did you keep costs low? We want that for our design. So those are our criteria. The last part is our constraints. Now, our constraints are our limits or our restrictions in the possible solution. So when you're testing and creating your designs, there's 2 things that you won't have control over. The criteria you'll be able to kind of play with these 3 things, but you won't get to determine how it's delivered. It's always going to be delivered by helicopter, number 1. And number 2, the supply pod is always going to be dropped from the same height. You can't drop it from any other height than what's going to be given to you as we move forward in the internship. So hopefully as of right now, we have a good idea of the general phases of our project and the timeline. We have an understanding of how to get into the dossier, what it is and how it works. And last but not least, hopefully we have a good understanding of the constraints and criteria. If not, make sure you're reaching out to your internship coordinator. Otherwise, from this point forward, good luck, interns.